I knew that if I gave Morgan the first $5,000 and if he did something violent and criminal, he was definitely going to blackmail me. I need a break.
See this brother winning, man. Hey, look, what is your win, big? What is your win, big?
Hello there, lovebirds. Hello there, bellas. If you have not already done so, please remember to like, share to Facebook, subscribe, and visit uptopbeauty.com. Today's looky would be our Michelle Red Lip. And if you are not already a part of our book club, please hit the Patreon link below and or the join button here on the YouTube. And for a small monthly fee of $5, you babies, yes, you, can be privy to all the shenanigans before the YouTube gets it, if the YouTube gets it. Now, let's continue talking about Mariah. Y'all, I know her name is Mariah, but I'm from DC, goddammit. Okay, the thick of it, okay? Mariah Carey. If you hear something snoring, that's my puppy. Oh my. It was as if he had given me the secret code for I got you. Appearing like a lighthouse in the storm, emotionally, I had cracked wide open. And Morgan, bitch ass, slithered in. Don't forget, Morgan is her brother, okay? The one with anger issues, the wall puncher. Okay. In my mind, you may hurt me and the people I love, so I'm gonna have to take you down, okay? And I mean that shit. I had been run out of my home and a hotel. There was an entire team of people hunting me down to pull me back to work, including my mother. I was beyond desperate and still in need of sleep. My record deal was an over $100 million pound leash around everybody's neck. I needed to find someone without any business interest or investments in me. Someone who knew me and cared about me, who would help me or hide me. My mind immediately went to Mariah Tatum, a.k.a. Tops. Now, let me tell you something. I know you're like, Nay, why we gonna name her? She's just a little drop of a character in the book. But anyway, what happened was I was watching Welcome Back, Carter the other day, and the episode that I was watching was the episode where Hotsy Totsy had said that she was pregnant by one of the sweat hogs, okay? Gabe Kaplan, Mr. Carter, was like, which one of you is the baby father? None of them was the baby father. Hotsy Totsy was like, bam, that's the point I'm trying to prove. Y'all call me Hotsy Totsy, but at the same time, ain't none of you had my vagina before. Get it? Because sometimes you can hunch the wrong pickle, girl, and that shit ruin you forever. You hear me? Forever. My mind immediately went to Mariah Tatum, a.k.a. Tots. She'd been with me as a background vocalist since Butterfly, and we became like sisters after her sister died. She was one of my few friends who I thought knew how to contend with really effed up situations, and this one certainly qualified. I took a private car service to Hotsy Totsy's apartment. It was certainly a great place to go incognito, but not to sleep. It was cramped and wasn't exactly comfortable for me. Plus, my angst and exhaustion were giving me nervous energy. I suggested Hotsy Totsy and her niece Nene and I go for a walk to help me wind down. Girl, is you crazy? What you think they won't notice your light bright ass down there? You think it? But anyway, what happened was Hotsy Totsy was like, no. You're not about to get us mobbed, all mauled out there on these New York streets. Here go a t-shirt of Nene's, her niece, which so happened to be a Mariah Carey t-shirt, a hat and some shades. It went well. We had a little laugh, a little comfort, a little escape. But I still felt like I was being tracked. I couldn't find any relief. I couldn't remember the last time I had slept or had a meal. Time was collapsing in on me. The days and events all running together. My management and the label somehow discovered I was in Brooklyn with Hotsy Totsy. They called and asked her to convince me to agree to do a video. My emotional instability as a result of sleep deprivation was starting to take hold of me. I was concerned and confused. Morgan was again dispatched to come and get me since the delegation at the hotel had surmised that he was the only one I trusted. No one knew that. For me, trusting Morgan was a dangerous proposition. Yeah, because he's a wall puncher. I never knew what to expect with Morgan. He'd been so unpredictable, volatile, and violent for so long, and yet my mother trusted him the most. He'd become her strong man, her protector, almost a father figure to her, a position that should never be filled by a son. You hear that, ho? At the beginning of my career, Morgan was on a mission to be known as the one who was responsible for discovering me. Seymour Stein, founder of Sire Records and signer of Madonna, actually had an opportunity for that distinction, as he was one of the first to have my demo. Alas, he said, she's too young. But that's another tangent. Morgan had several sketchy contacts in the music industry, but also introduced me to some important players in the fashion scene, like the late legendary hairstylist Aribe. In some circles, I was even known as Morgan's little sister, though he hadn't seen me as his little sister in a very long time. I was his little ticket to wealth and fame. I've often publicly recognized Morgan for being the one who loaned me $5,000 to pay for my first professional demo, for which I remain grateful and which I paid back 5,000 times over. I would continue to pay and pay. Less than a month after I signed my first record contract, my mother and Morgan proposed a family gathering at the shack. Maybe to celebrate. Girl. My mother and Morgan sat together on the dreary blue corduroy couch. I sat across from them on a rundown beige recliner. Neglect was the overall accent color. My mother was expressionless, occasionally darting her eyes over to Morgan for approval. He was clearly the host of this suspicious homecoming. I could tell he was in straight scheme mode. Morgan launched straight into a rant about what a conniving lowlife my mother's second husband could be, and how they were concerned that now that I was on my way to becoming famous, he was likely to pose a problem. Warning me that he knew all of our family's dirty secrets, and threatening that he would spill it all to the press. That he would tell the world about Allison being a drug-addicted prostitute and having HIV. What? Did Mariah Carey know that already? That is a terrible piece of news for her to learn like this. Oh yeah, your sister's HIV positive. My mother was silent. I recalled Morgan saying that I needed protection, that I needed to be careful, that this guy could end my career before it began. Bullshit, the Baker man. I mean, no, we didn't have Cardi B's back then, but Cardi B is the best example in the world of her background being, straight trash and become highly successful. Child, but you couldn't do that back then in the 90s and the early 2000s, child. We ain't know nobody's business then. Hence the Will and Jada. Okay, all right, we ain't know none of them niggas' business. Now, the life knew. We knew that they was around there having threesomes and, whatever, sexual escapades they was going for. We knew that Jada had a bitch and Will had whatever it was that he was doing that day. We knew, but the world didn't know. In less than 10 minutes in the shack, I was back in that familiar storm cloud of fear conjured up by my brother. I certainly didn't need convincing that this man was a horrible person, but I couldn't understand why my mother and my brother dragged me back here to talk to me about some alleged threats from her terrible husband. I had just signed my first record deal. I had just pulled myself out of this crazy, scary family drama. What were they even talking about? Why were they doing this? Why was I even there? The vibe was getting increasingly creepy and claustrophobic. I remember Morgan saying in his quiet, sinister way, I got this plan to shut him up. You don't need to know the details, but believe me, I can make him shut the frig up. He went on to say that all he needed was $5,000. There it was. If I was Mariah, I would be like, bro, I ain't giving you $5, but here go $1,000. Make it work. Yeah, this is her reflecting back on some bullshit with Morgan. I was barely in the 3rd grade when Morgan was involved in a plot to murder a man for money. Okay? Morgan got away with it though, because he didn't actually carry out the plot, right? But he had took the damn down payment. So that means that Morgan was intending on doing it, or he was going to scheme that lady out of her money. Come on, right? It's only $5,000. No one will ever know. Kept ringing in my ears. You don't have to do anything but give me the money, he said. I don't even think I'd received my first advance check, and already, my brother and mother were trying to get money out of me. And for what? To F up my mother's husband? What the F? I was not prepared for the implications all this was having for me and for my position in the family and in this world. Under no circumstances could I ever entertain being involved in physically harming anybody, even a despicable dickhead like her husband. I categorically refused to even entertain their sick scam. Yet what was really beating me down was that I knew that if I gave Morgan the first $5,000 and if he did something violent and criminal, he was definitely going to blackmail me. I need a break. I'm back. Girl, Mariah, to say I was on the edge by the time Morgan got to Tots would be generous. Though I hadn't ever had a nice trip to my mother's house in my shattered state, my brother made a convincing argument. Nobody, he contended, would dare to disturb me at my mother's house. His voice was sugary sweet, and I was too drained to access my gut instincts. If I were at a full capacity, I would have known my mother and her son were the last people I should be around when I was so vulnerable. But now I was going to go back with them. Any house my mother was in never felt like a safe haven, especially if Morgan was present. Yet I was far too fragile to resist. I decided we were all going. Safety in numbers, I thought. So Morgan, Hotsy Totsy, and I went off on a ride upstate. Over the river and through the woods to my mother's house we go. As we walked in the house, I was struggling to hide how wrecked I was, especially in front of my nephew Mike, who was still living there. He was just a kid and had already been through so much with his addicted mother. I wanted to spare him the traumatic history that was pulsing through me, through all of us. But I was only beginning to panic, realizing I was now isolated from the city and my actual home. I didn't have my driver. I was with Morgan, and my mother would be coming back any minute. They could be poisonous and manipulative together. I felt myself swinging back and forth out the house and back to the shack. I was in their world now. The past and the present felt the same, unsafe. I was an exhausted refugee, and I thought that refuge was exactly what I had found. I collapsed onto the cozy bed, surrendering to its softness. Everything quickly turned to a long-awaited dark, and I sank down into it. Finally, peace. Mariah, what are you doing? They're looking for you. A booming, dramatic voice violently pulled me out of the pool of quiet in which I had been floating, lost and sputtering. I was wrenched into consciousness to find my mother hovering over me. My own mother had woken me up from the first sleep I'd had in nearly a week. To make matters worse, she was waking me up to tell me that the record label was looking for me to get back to work. As if rather than being my mother and caretaker, she was some kind of agent for the machine that had repeatedly placed my earning potential over my well-being. Hell yeah. That's why you be having all them basketball players out there playing with broken knees, okay? And the COVID. Excuse me. doctor, give him some kind of something in his foot so he can get on that court and do what he do. I screeched. I just want to go to sleep. All my fears, all my resentment, all the years of impressions I'd done of her behind her back, all my anger was thrashing out with each word I hurled. I was in an angry, hysterical frenzy, but I was still also thinking about my nephew Mike. I didn't want to continue the sick cycle we'd all been through. And this is why I love Mariah. It's so many reasons why I love her. I'm telling y'all, man, I cannot say this enough. Lambs, thank you so much for supporting me with this Mariah Carey endeavor, okay? I didn't think that it would be a successful book for me, but it really, really is. It is the most profound book we have read yet. I have learned and grew the most from this book. When you are a survivor of domestic violence, whether you were a child and saw it, or you were the victim and grew past it, once you survive domestic violence and you get it, you don't want to bring that mess back into your house, okay? In fact, you're hypersensitive about showing that to your children or people that you love. Wait a minute, motherfucker. Wait a minute, because you're reminded of the boom, boom, boom. Me being a domestic violence survivor, not with someone putting their hands on me, but, you know, growing up with it in my household, I still have issues with thunder. You hear what I'm saying? Like, I'm not cowering, but it does do something to me. Standing in front of the door, putting my body between my mother and my tirade and his innocence. Before we arrived, I had asked Hotsy Totsy to look after Mike. I trusted her because of the countless nieces and nephews she'd taken care of over the years. I never knew what could happen with my family, so she was behind the door comforting him. I was screaming, "This has to stop. We have to break the cycle." Well, girl, that means it starts with you. Stop hollering like a monkey. Even though I'm not mad at you because I know you got some mental issues coming down. You are in the crux of a mental breakdown. All that hollering and shit, man, you make your children flinchy. All that hollering all over the place. The kid here, firecracker, they ducking for cover. When my mother feels scared, her complete assurance in the historic evidence that whiteness will always be protected activates, and she often calls the cops. At various times, she'd call the cops on my brother, my sister, and even my sister's children. My mother called the cops even when she didn't necessarily feel threatened. One Christmas, I brought my family to Aspen. It was the first year after I left Sing Sing, and I decided I wanted to create my own ultimate Christmas tradition. So I took the whole Carey clan. For me, Christmas means family. I rented a house so I could decorate and have home-cooked meals, and we could sing Christmas carols at the top of our lungs. And I put my family up in a fabulous hotel. Mariah, I applaud your effort. But them niggas, not them, girl, not them. You can't take them out the house. Yeah, especially not no fruity duty place like Aspen. Where's Morgan? She bellowed. I can't find Morgan. Mind you, Morgan was a 30-something-year-old grown man, but still my mother was in a self-induced panic. I can't find Morgan. She called his hotel room repeatedly, but there was no answer. So what did she do? She called the cops. My mother called the cops in Aspen, Colorado, to find my non-white, sometimes drug dealing, been in the system, drunk ass brother. The cops came to the hotel and it was a whole big drama. She asked them to break down his hotel door, behind which it turned out Morgan was lying naked, ass up, passed out on a bed. The news spread like a wildfire throughout the town. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the last time Morgan and Cop Caller Mom were invited to spend Christmas with me in Aspen. Yeah, because them niggas don't deserve it. Now she just gave us an example of how her mammy love to call the police, okay? The Karens of the world. Hello, police. She gave us that example. Now she's taking it back to present moment, not present moment, but where she is now screaming in her mammy face, "You're supposed to be my mother. Why is you telling these people where I'm at? Don't tell me that the record label looking for me. I'm here because I'm ducking them." And so that night in Westchester, she called the cops on me too. Now, if you have not already done so, please remember to like, share the Facebook, subscribe, and visit uptopbeauty.com. Now remember this, the same people that you meet on the way up will always be the same people that you meet on the way down. My naysayers, my patron loves, you babies, y'all better have a good one. Peace.